Hello, and welcome to Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. We are your messy, imperfect homeschool mom friends. I'm your host, Amanda, and this is my awesome co-host.
Hello, I'm Megan.
Hey. All right. So we mentioned it last week, but if you are just tuning in and joining us for whatever reason, these last weeks of 2024 are going to be slightly different for us. Instead of recording and publishing our full hour plus episode and book club each week, we are creating a series of, we're calling them unfiltered bites. So they're shorter episodes covering very specific topics that don't necessarily require that full 60 plus minutes of discussion that we usually provide. And hopefully it will help, right, with the time crunch that we're all feeling as we rush towards the end of the year and wonder how we got here and if we're going to survive December. But have no fear. We will definitely be back to our full-length episodes and book club come January.
Yeah, so today we will be talking about incorporating winter holidays into your homeschool life. And we are a secular podcast, but it doesn't hurt to understand what other people celebrate and believe and world religions and observances and all of that. So we are not professing that you take up any of these religions, but just learn about what your neighbors might observe or what they do in other countries or other places. So we're going to dive into a couple of holidays today, but you could certainly expand upon what we talk about today and go even further.
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing, right? As you start researching these specific ones and finding free materials or affordable materials online, you're probably going to stumble into others that your kids want to learn more about or you want to learn more about. And by all means, right, that's the joy of homeschooling. You get to approach things and learn about things in whatever way works for your family.
Mm-hmm.
And you may be a secular homeschooler who chooses to participate in certain religious aspects and educate from a secular perspective. Like, we're all in. We accept all of those things. We don't church in my house, but I know Megan, I guess she's synagogues. She doesn't church, but we're open. I'm going to talk about looking at Christmas around the world. So like I said, we don't church. There's no aspect of the religious side of it, but we do enjoy a good Santa story. We definitely went to Lapland and saw Santa at the North Pole, quote unquote, and we've been to North Pole, Alaska. Like, you can have fun with that. And those are things you can absolutely study and make part of geography, all the different places that may claim to be the home of Santa. And we all know the mall, your local mall, isn't the home of Santa, just like these other places are not the home of Santa. But you can definitely use that to map and get an idea and look at the Arctic Circle and things like that. There are other parts of Christmas around the world. So you have the Nordic or Scandinavian countries. They have some really unique things where they do like candles on your tree. Maybe don't do that at home unless you're really confident in that, and don't come at us if you set your tree on fire. But it's still fun to look at, and you can watch some YouTube videos. They're definitely safer than actually trying to light your tree on fire. You can do other fun things, right? My kiddo was born in Belgium, so we found a great picture book that was Christmas in Belgium, and it went through all of these different foods and traditions and gifts and drinks that they use and celebrate around the holidays in Belgium specifically. And there are lots of those kinds of opportunities and different books, picture books and bigger books that you can get from your local library or, secondhand bookstore. Definitely check those out. And then if you want to expand on that, again, from a secular perspective, you can look at Boxing Day. That's the day after Christmas, and it's significant in some countries, not so much in the United States. Look it up, learn about it so that your kids understand when people bring up Boxing Day and they're like, say what? How does boxing have anything to do with Christmas? It's not that kind of boxing. Yeah, right. And then you also have, what is it, the 3 Kings, the 5 Kings? There's a King's holiday in there that is also, again, it's a religious part of the holiday season, but it is common, especially in Europe. Things close down. There's lots of special food and festivities and celebrations around that. So you don't have to believe in the holiday or celebrate the holiday to be impacted by the fact that things are closed for that holiday, or there's maybe a special cake that you really love that's put out for that holiday that you want to go score. So, these are all fun ways that you can, again, just knowledge is power. You can learn about it, incorporate it, celebrate it. Maybe you'll find something that you really want to do and make part of your family tradition, even if it's not something that would normally be what you would do here in the United States for Christmas. One way that you can do that with littler kids is you can make a lap book or a unit study book that looks like a suitcase, and you can take a virtual trip around the world. You can kind of collaborate and put all of these things together. And then by doing that, you're building again on that idea of geography. You're practicing that. You're looking at the differences. You can do comparative things. You can incorporate that for your writing. Just lots of fun ways to do that if you're really thinking about that around the world aspect when you're doing that one.
I think it would be fun too to see what people put out for Santa around the world too, because in the US it's cookies and milk is kind of the tradition, and then in other places it's other things. I think in the UK they put out sherry, so you might not want to go there in your homeschool days unless you want CPS showing up at your door, right? But I had a friend who had a very interesting tradition where her and her partner would drink the sherry and then have an annual event under the tree that was adult time, and that was all part of their sherry activities. So skip that one, but some of the others you might want to explore, right? You could try baking different things or making different recipes, exploring all the things that people put out for Santa around the world, which would be pretty fun too. All right, so then we've got Hanukkah, which we do celebrate in our house. There's so many fun ways that you can explore Hanukkah. The first is reading the story of what Hanukkah is. I think there's people who've heard the dreidel song who maybe know some foods, but that's about it, right? And there's some great storybooks out there that talk about the whole history of Hanukkah and why it's celebrated. There's an amazing guy named Judah Maccabee who's involved. In fact, there's a whole thing called the Maccabee Games in the Jewish religion that are kind of like the Jewish Olympics. So that's in there. So you can dig in and kind of learn that whole history that's there. We did this a bunch of years ago when my kids were really small, and we went really, really deep into Hanukkah one year and actually learned about this woman named Judith who tricked one of the invading army officers into coming over, and she gave him this really, really salty cheese, and then he drank a whole lot of wine because of the salty cheese, and then she killed him, and she was just like this super badass figure in the world of Hanukkah. So there's so much depth to Hanukkah that people don't realize. One of the keys, though, of the holiday, one of the really significant things is that during this war that occurs, the temples are destroyed. And so the Jewish people go back into their temples. They've been desecrated in so many ways, and they're trying to purify them and rebuild them. And they find this little tiny jar of oil, and it should have only been enough oil to maybe last one day, and it lasts for 8 days, which is why Hanukkah is 8 days long, and there's a lot of oil involved. So we do cook a lot in oil during Hanukkah. So super fun recipes. There's latkes, which are like a potato pancake. There's sufganiyot, which is like a jelly-filled donut, which is really good. So cooking is always such an awesome way to learn about other cultures, other religions, right? Like who doesn't love eating something delicious? You could buy some dreidels. They're really inexpensive at Target, and they've got the little gold coins. They're called gelt. They're chocolate. They're not really coins. And you could play the dreidel game. There's actual rules to the game. You can find them online. Depending on which way the dreidel lands, you either put a coin in or take a coin out. And so there are actual rules. It's not just spinning it and watching it fall over. That would be a pretty boring game. And then both for Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, which we're about to talk about in just a moment, you can make candles. Have you ever made candles in your homeschool life, Amanda? Has that crossed your bucket list yet?
In homeschooling, we've gone like to Old Town and watched them make candles, but we haven't actually made them.
Yeah, it's been surprising how many times it's kind of come across my desk as a homeschool parent. I'm like, oh, we could make candles for this. We could make candles for that. It's pretty quick, pretty not too messy, pretty easy. There's a safety factor involved, right? Because you're melting wax down and all that kind of stuff. But you could totally make candles for Hanukkah or for Kwanzaa, which would be a great way to learn about these events as well. So Kwanzaa is a holiday that I myself only started learning about with my kids in the last handful of years. I feel like even though it's been around for longer, it didn't enter my sphere of knowledge for a while. So Kwanzaa is a holiday that's based on 7 specific principles. And much like Hanukkah, there's candle lighting involved. So hence making candles would be amazing. And there's specific colors involved with Kwanzaa as well. But the 7 principles stand for unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. And there is an official Kwanzaa website. We will link it in the show description that talks through kind of the origin of the holiday, the way the holiday is celebrated, and things like that. And it's a trusted site. It's a not-for-profit, it's a .org, and it is an own voice source. So it's not me, who's only learned about Kwanzaa in the last handful of years, trying to stand there and be an expert on it. It's people who are actual experts on it that would be a great resource for your homeschool learning. We will also link in the show notes a website that has daily songs and poems for reflection during Kwanzaa, and you'll see a really beautiful variety of artists and authors in there, from Toni Morrison to Daniel Black and Isabel Wilkerson. There are some amazing resources. So we will link that in the show notes as well if you'd like to dig in. And I think here's the thing when it comes to something like Kwanzaa, for example, or maybe Hanukkah, maybe Christmas, if any of these are 100% foreign to you and you're like, I can't teach this, like there's no way. You don't have to teach it, right? You can learn along with your kids. So if you are completely clueless about Kwanzaa, go in with that, right? And be like, let's learn about this together. You do not feel like you can only cover things that you really confidently know. If your kids ask you a question and you're like, I have no idea why someone might eat catfish during Kwanzaa. Okay, well, let's Google it. I mean, you don't have to have all the answers. So and I think it's great to show your kids also kind of that side of like, I don't know all of this stuff, but let's explore it together, right? And I'm never going to have all the answers, but we can find them together. So there's some great options out there when it comes to these holidays.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And, I think that one of the best places to start, especially if you don't know very much about it for any of these holidays, are picture books. And I know that we think like, oh, even elementary age kids don't really like picture books anymore, or it's not appropriate by the time they hit kind of 8 or 9, like, oh, the picture books are for littler kids. The reality is a picture book has pictures, right? So if this is something that you don't know anything about, you don't know what the dining room table setup is going to look like, or you don't know what kind of festivals or activities they have, pick up a picture book. They have them for all of these. I know in our personal library, we have Kwanzaa and Hanukkah and Christmas picture books, but you can absolutely go to your local library. I would pretty much guarantee that your librarian is going to be so excited if you come in and you say, we would like to see some picture books about different winter holidays around the world. Where are those located? The librarians, right, they are just getting hammered these days. And in those rural areas, it's like, oh, only these things and only Christian this and only, if you come in and ask for things, they're going to be just over the moon. Just yesterday, we had to go pick up the books that we had on reserve. And it's a bunch of, right now, we're studying things that are around Reconstruction and women's rights and those kinds of things. And when I went to try, they were on hold for us. We went to go check them out. And the machine wouldn't let us check them out. It kept giving me an error and said I had to go to the desk. And I went to the desk and I was like, I'm having a problem with the card. It said we had to come see you. And she was kind of like, well, let me see. She was looking at some things. She's like, oh, it's giving me a notice that you've got 20 books on hold and you already have some checked out. Like you're kind of over the limit. And I was like, oh no, like we were really wanting these. And she started looking through the books we had and she was like, these are great books. These are just such good books. You know what? You can have all of these books. You can take them home. You have them for a month. Like, I'm so excited that you're reading these books, right? Because like they want to see kids getting this great knowledge, this world education. And, so truly, you can make a librarian's day, maybe their whole week, by going and asking them and turn it into a lesson, how to use the library, practice some SEL skills with asking adults for help. It'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So your December is going to be super full because we've got Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. Okay. We've also got Yule. So Yule is a festival that was originally observed by Germanic people. And in modern times, primarily neo-pagans, and it coincides with the winter solstice, which is typically a big day for people who live in areas where it gets dark really, really early, because then you're like, we're past the halfway point, right? In the Northern Hemisphere, it lands December 21st to the 22nd. And so later, some of these holidays were kind of subsumed into other holidays like Christmas, which has pagan origins. So yeah, some of the different traditions and things like that, right? There was no spruce pine tree in Bethlehem, right? I mean, some of these, they came from other things. So Yule is a great one to dig into and to look into. So yeah, we will link in the description some activities for Yule, some crafts and some cooking and things like that. We've got activities to make a simmering potpourri pot or some smudge sticks and things like that. So there's plenty of fun ways to dig into Yule if that's something that hasn't been part of your routine yet and you would like to incorporate it this year. Have fun, go for it, right? I mean, Amanda, Miss Super Academic Aggressive Homeschooler, is taking December off from traditional schoolwork to explore some other interest-based topics. You're allowed to do that in the world of homeschooling, right? You can take December, quote unquote, off and just explore winter holidays if you want to. If that fits into your game plan, there's plenty of time to explore these things because there's so much learning in this exploration, which is pretty awesome.
So some quick tips that are important as you do this, right? Again, we are a secular, progressive homeschool group. So we want to remind people that even when looking for textbooks or fiction books, please consider the source. Try to focus on own voice books that are endorsed by organizations related to the topic, right? There are loads of lists online from well-vetted resources. There are book lists put out by different organizations. It's not hard. There are plenty of Facebook groups and discussions in Facebook groups. You can do a search. You don't even have to ask because it's all been covered many times over in just about any Facebook group you're in. But try to look for own voice books around all of these things and own voice resources if you're using, the Google, which is my next tip, right? Pinterest can absolutely be your friend for these things, and Google can be your friend. Again, use some critical thinking, be discerning about things, but there are loads and loads of resources out there. There are lots of free resources on all of these things, whether you want to do a Montessori unit study on holidays around the world, or you want to do some kind of a book-based or arts and crafts, Waldorf style. Like, there's so many resources online. Look them up, use them as a jumping off point, incorporate them. Pinterest and Google are your friend when it comes to these kinds of things. And the third tip that we really want to stress is that there is a difference between cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation. If in doubt, it is probably safer to sit it out. Okay. We absolutely encourage studying and learning and understanding, but we are not trying to encourage anyone to be jerks who appropriate inappropriate things, right? Mm-hmm. So just keep that in mind as you move forward through this holiday season. And with that, we're pretty much done with this Unfiltered Bite. We do want to quickly remind you that we have our Patreon memberships on sale through January 4th, 2025 for 50% off your first month. You can use the code BITE50, that's BITE50 at checkout. It'll give you 50% off your first month of a Patreon membership. The link is in the description. That'll take you to our Patreon, and it'll also help you understand the different benefits at the different levels. But we're working really hard to build a great community for our fellow like-minded progressive homeschoolers, and we hope to see you there. And that pretty much wraps us up for today, right? So we hope to see you in our Patreon community. We hope to see you on our different social media sites. If you'd like to join our Facebook group, Homeschool Moms Unfiltered, please do. And in the meantime, we hope you have a great one and happy homeschooling.
Have an awesome day.